folks. Welcome to the third live episode of in season 7, celebrating 4 years of On the Call. And I'm Ozzie Stewart, as you know, and very grateful that you've tuned into this thank you tour of mine, giving flowers to these deserving impactors. And on this episode, I'm shining light on Monique Ferguson-Riley. And before we get to Monique, I just want to say that this hat is courtesy of House of BAV BK Style. What do you think, guys? Cool? You know me and my hats. Got to do it. So now, Monique, what I do on my podcast is that I give a rundown of my guests so that people know who they are, yes. Right? So it may be uncomfortable, but I'm just going to talk to people a little bit about who Monique Ferguson-Riley is. Monique is a mother of 5 and an MBA graduate of Capella University. She also graduated from Bethel University with a bachelor's degree in ministry in 2017. In the fall of 2021, Monique received the esteemed Alumna of the Year award, where she was recognized by Bethel University in the state of Minnesota for the work she has done in the lives of at-risk youth and her fight against human trafficking. She has worked in the nonprofit sector for several years with a focus on victim services as it applies to youth, adults, and families. And knowing that victims of sexual trafficking are raped over and over again, in 2019, she founded Freedom Youth Family Justice Center, Inc., which is a 501c3 nonprofit, which empowers, strengthens, stabilizes survivors of human trafficking, sexual assault, and domestic violence that reside in New York City and Westchester County by providing holistic, comprehensive supportive services, housing, and financial resources for the survivor and their immediate family members. Monique herself is a sex trafficking survivor after having been coerced by a friend at the age of 12. But since then, Monique Riley has trained over 1,000 youth, parents, teachers, and professionals through various organizations and assisted victims, survivors, and their immediate families, and have also given teens a platform to speak out on many of the social and health issues that are faced with such things as bullying, teen pregnancy, depression, belonging, and abandonment, empowering youth to stand up and use their voices. She has spearheaded the Vulnerable People Project, working closely with elected officials, NYPD, Department of Homeland Security, as it pertains to the recovery of young people and promoting awareness and safety in the community. She's also worked with various colleges and universities to assist in community efforts and provided jobs and internships for college students and poor youth. Wanting to gauge the community in various neighborhoods in New York City, she created surveys to explore what people knew about human trafficking and discovered that only 27% of the people surveyed knew what exactly human trafficking was and how children were lured into the lifestyle. In 2023, January, Freedom Youth Family Justice Center has reached another plateau by opening up their first safe home in New York for girls between the ages of 12 and 17.
Yes.
Via young adult discovery YAD program. Yeah. So folks, if you are being trafficked, suspect trafficking activity in your area, please call the National Human Trafficking Resource Center hotline at 888-373-7888 or text Be Free to 233-733. I'm going to say that again. Or text Be Free to 233-733. Otherwise, Monique can be found at https://freedomyouthnyc.com. And if you need information, Monique is there, as she is here, at info@freedomyouthnyc.com. Monique, I am just very honored that you made the trip in to talk to me, to talk to us. Okay. Question number 1. How did you get away from that life, the self-trafficking world that you were coerced into?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a process, mainly changing the mind. Um, to come out of the lifestyle, I felt like I had to change my mind. I had to see something different. And for that, for me, was having my first child at 17, 18, and entering into Monroe College School and seeing other professional women and seeing how different their life was. And not having to be able to uh, sort of sell myself or selling or buy into the idea that I'm not worthy enough to be anything more.
How did you feel when you first started sharing your story of resilience?
I started sharing my story of resilience in 2019 when I formed the organization, not knowing what the organization would have become. I thought I was just helping one person, and it led to where we are today. Um, at first, I thought I was just a random person who was a prostitute, in any other words, someone who was surviving sex or a sex worker. For years, I did not know that I was a victim or a survivor of human trafficking. And that is the case for a lot of women.
What are the ways that the traffickers lure their victims? Like, what makes the youth vulnerable to trafficking?
Their vulnerabilities. Um, Rather you are in special ed, rather you are trying to belong or connect, being in certain programs or facilities, such as maybe ACS care, um, foster care, things of that nature, can make you vulnerable to being involved in the world of sex trafficking. Whatever you can deem a vulnerability, rather it's a disability, a mental health issue, whatever it is, homelessness can cause someone to get involved in that lifestyle. And I don't want to say get involved because I feel like it's more along the lines of someone manipulating the other person to believe that this is the only way out.
What who are SYEP teens? SYEP teens.
Yes, these are summer youth students
Got it.
that we bring in every summer. We get anywhere from 19 to about 45, sometimes close to 50 young people that we're able to educate for 2 to 3 weeks on the different issues, social issues that teens are faced with the predominant focus on human trafficking. And so we train them on what those items are. And so most of them are facing it in some way or another or at risk for it. And so they learn about it and then they take uh, that education and they peer educate other peers throughout the
Right.
summertime.
Right. What is the biggest challenge that you're facing right now in what you do?
I would say the biggest challenge is focusing on even getting the message out there that human trafficking is happening. And that's scary because we saw such progress happen during the pandemic. We saw the rolling in of different rules that took place almost immediately, effectively, quickly, in order to save the majority here. And I like to think of human trafficking as being also a pandemic that has been around for decades,
Right.
for years.
Right.
Yet we're still in the same place. No one is aware of what it is, what it really looks like to be trafficked.
Right.
Everyone assumes that it's abduction.
Right.
It's not. Human trafficking has taken on a different face. It has become more easy to get to their praise. Certain individuals are involved in these type of things, and we're not doing enough to educate our parents or our children about it. It's been hard to get into schools, which is where the grounds are for most kids getting other kids involved. So our biggest issue is awareness.
I asked you once, why is it so many black girls and women trafficked? Like, what is it? You know, why? Why is it so easy? And you said to me that someone who was in the trafficking business told you that it's because nobody cares. That hit me. Nobody cares about these black girls and women.
We are, and I mean black girls, Hispanic girls, migrants, we are one of the most unprotected individuals, or races, genders, etc. We are one of the most underprotected. A lot of people, when we go missing, our Black and Spanish girls are not always found. And when they do go missing and they are found, there's not enough services, resources, and programs out there that's willing to do the work. Our girls are underprotected. Our boys who are involved in human trafficking are underprotected and is underrated. Because of the lack of information, education, awareness, prevention, early intervention, we're going to continue to see this pandemic happen.
This subject really affects me. To think that 71,000 Black girls and women were trafficked or went missing. 71,000 people. Black girls, just Black girls and women in 2021. In 2020 it was 90,333. You don't hear anything on the news. I became aware of it when Gabrielle Union picked it up. And I saw her on the I think it was CBS News or something like that. She's picked it up. And she was raped at her job at the age of 19 at gunpoint. Now she's appearing on an Apple TV Plus series with Octavia Spencer, which is called Truth Be Told. This so enrages me. And Truth Be Told deals with human and sexual trafficking. Have you heard of any other celebrities really that has really...
I haven't heard of any other celebrities other than Ashton Kutcher.
Oh.
It almost feels like he gave up his passion acting and took on a whole new light. And it really pushes me to continue to do my own fight, because this happened to me. Happened to me at 12 years old. Right. It is something that I have to continue to deal with.
Right.
You know? Sorry.
Didn't want to bring you down either, but it's just like, I had to have you on and I had to talk about it. And I thought I'd be cool through it, but you know, this thing is serious that you can't even get any, the news doesn't cover it.
The news is not covering it.
It said that identified girls are identified as runaways, so there's no Amber Alert law enforcement attention. The verbiage is they're juvenile prostitutes, and they get adultified. Talk to me about that whole adultified scenario.
Absolutely. This is something that we have been seeing even in the whole fight with gun violence, etc. This is beyond us. Black bodies have always been seen as violence. Always. We have always been adultified. No one knows at what point, at what age a person is deemed violent. But it seems like growing up brown, mixed, etc., that we're seen as violence, as a weapon. In the world of human trafficking, our Black and Hispanic girls, they are rated. The lighter you are, the more money they can make from you. The darker you are, the less money, but the more bodies they have, because they believe that they can just gather young girls who are brown skinned and use manipulation tactics and materialistic items and needs, and use that as a way to gain access to their victims.
But is it purely a sexual thing that they crowd source, let's put it that way, Blacks?
Oh yeah, it's
just for sex, or is it like
Well, predominantly here in New York City, the main issues around human trafficking results from labor trafficking and sex trafficking. But sex trafficking is becoming number one. It is something that you can do. When you think about how it's moved up in scale, it used to be the gun trafficking,
right,
and then it was drug trafficking,
right,
and then it was human trafficking.
Right.
Now it's gun violence, human trafficking, drug trafficking. During COVID-19, we saw such a spike in online recruitment. We saw such a spike of young people leaving foster cares, leaving their homes, meeting with individuals, and then being lured into the lifestyle for various reasons. But nevertheless, it continues to be such a big issue. I've met with someone who said, I'm a white pimp. If I'm found with a black girl, if I'm found with a black or Hispanic girl, I won't do as much time. Why? And I asked him, why do you say that? Because it's easy pickings. Think about this. How many of our children are living in communities where these new hotels and motels are popping up? You want to know where I find our girls? Every time that the cops say a child is missing, they wait this whole 48 hours. That 48 hours is very precious time. There's a lot that can happen, especially if they're involved in trafficking. Because the moment they get a new girl on the block, they ended up breaking in. So there's a grooming, breaking, etc. And depending on how that girl got involved in the lifestyle, they can be a break-in within that 48 hours. That's rape. Sometimes using horse tranquilizers to keep them still because they're fighting. And when you go to these communities and they say they can't find our girls, they dedicate 15 minutes to our girls per case. And if your child is labeled as a regular runaway, oh no, they're not going to go out there and look for your child. They're going to pick up the phone and say, hey, did she come back home today? Did she make it back home? As if she's not missing. Right in the communities when I do my own rescues, I find them right in our hotels and our motels. That's heartbreaking because when I find them, they're broken. When I find them, they're on drugs and no one will take them in to help them.
So it's like a vicious cycle.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Guys, we have to do something. We have to come together and do something about this. Because the money behind it is big. The money behind it is large. If you're corralling people like horses, what are you using the horses for?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about, I read somewhere that they don't use the DNA from relatives to find the missing girls.
I'm not certain about that. What do you mean?
In USA Today, there was an article that said that in terms of the DNA, law enforcement DNA bases, which includes a disproportionately high number of black genetic samples, can't use DNA from the relatives of the missing to find a match with a living person.
That's not something that I'm very that I can speak on, but I would imagine they would say something like that.
This is what Gabrielle Union said. Media doesn't care. We don't control the media. We don't control what they deem as important, but their absence in our families and in our communities are felt immediately. But somehow, some folks have been conditioned to believe that the black and brown folks don't experience pain, trauma, and abuse in the same way. It's almost as if they were built for it. She also said, they don't prioritize our pain. In fact, they will make us complicit in our own abuse. She goes on about, I was raped at gunpoint in a store I worked for by a stranger. They still ask me what I had on. They will make you complicit in your abuse. It's pure, straight-up racism. And this is what it boils down to, and the centering and prioritizing of white pain.
Yeah, I 100% agree with her. I 100% agree. I remember when I went in for my break-in, and the girl who had lured me in to meet the first John that I was going to meet, I stood at the door, scared and nervous, with a fake ID, willing to go with her because I wanted her to remain my friend. And I wanted to continue on with whatever she thought would be suitable at that moment. There were some things that I did not agree or go there for. She said, you don't have to have sex. You could just dance nude. This is after months, from September to November of grooming. And when I got into the home, I tried to follow her into the bathroom, and she told me, no, go with him. She's going to roll up some weed. What took place in that room was the most horrendous. It was my death place at 12 years old. My break-in. When I went home, I cried after he threw $300 on me and told me to leave. That's all I was worth. And when I went home, I did this ugly cry in the shower, and I really wanted my mother. I really did. Because I knew that I could not tell her anything. But I would tell you this. Once everything was done, and I did find someone to share that information with, which is a guidance counselor, that night my mom was arrested for neglect. She had no idea that this was happening to me. Eventually, I moved out of there, and they put me in ACS care. AWOL there. But before I moved out to go on from ACS into ACS care, a detective was sent that night to my home. White guy. Can't remember the station, but the station was 151st Street in Harlem. And I remember him coming to my room, kicking my mom out that room, sitting down. And I thought he was my knight in shining armor. He was a Caucasian man. And he said, I want to put the person who did this to you behind bars. And I sat and I said, okay, I'm going to tell him. This is it. I'm going to let him know what happened to me. And it shifted. His words shifted. He said to me, you do know if you're found to be lying about any of this, you need to just come out and say that you was prostituting. Those were his words. There was no survival sex words. There was no new code words. He said, if you're found to be prostituting and you're lying, you can go to jail. I instantly shut down. So when you talk about insensitiveness that comes from individuals, when you talk about what we get and what other people who are not African American, Hispanic get, it's two separate fences. We don't get what they get. We don't.
Monique, what concerns you about the world today? What gives you hope?
When I find the little girls that need help, when I find the girls and they're able to come out of this lifestyle, when I see them walk past and graduate, that's what gives me hope. Because I didn't have hope. I didn't have that. I didn't have someone that was willing to go through life with me after all of my trauma. And that's what we are giving to our girls today with Freedom Youth. I watched one of my girls graduate from my program, become 18 years old after what she experienced. And I see that she's grown. She got into John Jay College. Oh. She wants to be a lawyer and a police officer. That's what gives me hope, because they're not garbage. Right. They're not disposed of. You're still worthy.
You're now married. You have a wonderful husband. You have a wonderful life. What are two things that you're grateful for?
I'm grateful for life. I'm grateful for my family. And if I had to say the other one, I am surely grateful for what God has done. He kept me and preserved my life for just this moment.
And I'm grateful to have you here and to open up. And this whole scenario is just, I had to have you. And I'm so grateful to Shani. Thank you, Shani. And I thank you for coming again. I see you. At first I heard you when we spoke. Then I saw you and I did the research. And I just want to say you matter so much. You matter. And I want to say thank you to House of BAV, BK Style, for my hat. To JC, Rick, Anton, Alexa, Ahmad, Podcast Central. And to my audience, this one is a little heavy, but thank you for spending the valuable time with us today. Please care to share. And remember, when you're on your beat, stay on the sunny side of the street, safely, be health conscious, kind to one another, and don't forget to give thanks for the little and big gifts. You never know. As we strive to live a beautiful life. Thank you. me there at aussiestewart.com or supporting us at anchor.fm/Aussie Stewart. That's ANCHOR.FM/Aussie Stewart. And don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel at Aussie Stewart. Yep. Leave a comment.